Hi, this is Robert Clickybeard with the Commercial Landscaper Podcast. I'm going to take about 30 minutes of your life to deliver some amazing content from accomplished leaders, business owners, to provide you some great Ironman mindsets to help you scale your business, to become a better leader and push yourself out of a comfort zone into something that's going to stretch you. We hope you really enjoy these shows and encourage you to like and share with your friends, your network, family members. Try and get a wider audience and improve our industry. On each show, I'm going to try and pull out one type of Ironman mindset, insight that you could take back to your business. And if you're implementing one insight every single week or all the shows, then it's going to make a dramatic improvement to your business. Super excited as well to share that we're partnering up with Boss Business Management Software, which is the ultimate cloud-based solution providing comprehensive insights and tools to optimize performance. Join the Boss community today and transform your business so you too can say, my boss is working for me. Cheers, everyone. Hi, this is Robert Clickybeard with the Commercial Landscaper Podcast. Really excited today to be joined by Matt Hunter. Matt, thanks for joining the show today.
I'm very honored. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, and we've talked a few times, but good to finally get you onto the show. So just, Matt, for the audience, tell me a little bit about yourself, your background in the industry, how long you've been around, just all those details.
I got into the industry like many others have. I started off mowing yards. I got my first dirt bike and needed a place to keep that dirt bike. And my friend had a nice farm, and they grew strawberries and annuals. I kept my dirt bike there in exchange for working at the garden center. So that's how I got my first introduction into a garden center. Then I moved to North Carolina with my folks in 1990. And started working at a garden center in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. It's no longer there, but it's called Avalon Gardens. And really found a liking to the industry, more about plants and the names, how to take care of those plants. I attended NC State University, North Carolina State University, and got my associate's degree in ornamentals and landscape technology. And then I worked for a couple of different companies over the years and went back to get my bachelor's degree from the University of North Carolina at Greensboro in business administration. And was planning to be an accountant. I wanted to go on, get my master's, and become a CPA. And thankfully, I didn't do that. A common friend introduced me to what used to be John Deere Landscapes. I started my career there in outside sales. I did that for probably 5 years. And then I managed what was one of their green branches, a nursery branch, for about 10 years. So, my story is a little bit different than most. I didn't start my business as, I am the owner of New Garden Landscaping and Nursery. I bought that business from a friend of mine that knew I was working at John Deere Landscapes, looking to make a career. He approached me. I worked for him for about 5 years and then bought the business in December of 2020. After that, we continued on through COVID, had great years. And this past year, I purchased a franchise, a lawn care franchise called Nature Select Piedmont, and then also purchased an irrigation service company called Landscape Irrigation Systems, or better known as LIS. Cool. So that's just a brief rundown of my history.
So going back to the points in which you got involved in New Garden, it sounded, I think I caught this right, that your friend offered you to buy the business, but you had to go in and work in the business first, and then you got ownership over.
Correct. So I worked in the business for about 5 years. The first 3 years as the director of business development, and then was moved into the role of president for about 2 years. The previous owner, Morris Newlin, was looking to retire and wanted to keep the business within the company and not go out to private equity. So then at that point, that's when I purchased the business in December of 2020.
Okay, cool. And he approached you, or you caught wind and approached him? What did that conversation look like?
So when I was working at John Deere Landscapes, I was approached by the previous president of New Garden, Conrad Hyder, and he called me late one afternoon and said, "Hey, I need to meet you tomorrow morning for breakfast." Well, my personality is that I assumed that we did something wrong, and we're getting ready to lose our largest client. So I said, "Hey, can't you tell me what's going on?" He said, "No, just meet me for breakfast tomorrow morning, and it'll be fine." So I came home. I told my wife, what was going on, and she goes, "It's going to be fine. Don't worry." Well, I worried all night long. didn't sleep much. And the next morning, I had breakfast with Conrad, and he explained to me that he was going to be getting married and moving to Chapel Hill, North Carolina, and that they needed somebody to take his place. So from that point, I met with the owner, Morris Newlin, and we courted each other for a few months, talking back and forth on his vision, my vision, long-term opportunities for me. I started working with them in November of 2015.
Cool. Now, obviously, it's quite a big jump going, to working for people to then buying, your own business.
Yes.
What was that like for you? You obviously made that jump. I mean, so a lot of people find it tough to go into business. I work with a lot of people who are in W-2s and they're thinking about jumping into buying a business, but everybody's circumstances change. Some are married, some are single. When you're married and have commitments, it's a little bit tougher to make that jump.
So it was quite a change. I was used to being a W-2 employee for John Deere Landscapes and New Garden, and then to go into ownership, it was quite an adjustment. Luckily we were in the latter stages of COVID-19, and people were still at home, and we were extremely busy. I mean, we were booked out, months at a time. So that took some of the financial stress off of me, but I still had the stress of, HR, feeling that feeling of almost being a fraud, that I don't deserve this role. How am I going to lead a company? Sometimes I can barely lead myself. So it was a challenge. And a lot of times I spent questioning myself, did I do the right thing? Did I do the right thing? And then, Morris, the previous owner, stayed on payroll for about 3 years. And he was a good mentor to me and still is a good mentor. So helped me get through a lot of those questions I had and let me know that the world was not coming to an end if we had a bad financial month, that we'd be able to push through. So it was a challenge, and he was a big help as a mentor to push through that.
Now, I could go so many different directions here. You talk about I call it the imposter syndrome, where,
yes, sir.
Where it's either you shouldn't be in that position, you shouldn't be speaking to people. I mean, I think a lot of successful people go through that mindset. So, I'm glad to hear you're bringing it up. It sounds like, obviously you went from a W-2 to a different position. You obviously cancelled out the cash part, which can be crippling to a lot of new business owners. They don't necessarily have enough cash or working capital going into business because, all these different challenges. But obviously you started off at a good time with going into COVID. What was probably the biggest challenge for you thinking back as you started off in that role? I mean, it was nice having the previous owner being your mentor, but what do you feel was that really caught you off guard?
The biggest problem I ran into in that new role was legacy employees of New Garden Landscaping and Nursery that did not share my vision of growth and improvement of the business. And there were several people that are no longer with the company because they did not share that growth and were not willing to make changes to move forward and see the company grow. And that lasted really 3 years to go through and make sure everybody was on board with where we were going and where we wanted to be long term.
It's something I hear all the time, that it's the people part that's the most challenging. People don't quite anticipate the people part. And, you can go through as much due diligence as you want. Thinking back over those 3 years, what would you have done differently?
I would have followed my gut instinct on people that did not want to grow with the company or share my vision. I was trying to accommodate their needs, wants, and desires along with my own, and that was a recipe for failure. It took some long, hard conversations with Morris and my wife to really help me push through those difficult times and make the decision. So I would definitely say in that I should have followed my gut and made decisions earlier rather than waiting a couple of years. No,
that's great. I hear that more often than not because it's the challenge you have that you want to come in and give people an opportunity. Sometimes people haven't been given an opportunity before with previous owners. There's a certain point where you just have to, as you say, trust your gut or make that decision because other people can be held back. You could be held back not being able to grasp other opportunities.
Correct. Yes, sir.
So you've obviously you obviously learned a lot from that experience, and it didn't necessarily put you off because you obviously went in. You mentioned you've acquired now a couple of other businesses. So there's obviously a huge amount of activity in the M&A space. A lot of private equity getting in, some going well, some going not so well. I think a lot of private equity companies are definitely doing a better job with maybe not changing names, just doing things a little bit better to sort of hold things together. But you don't often hear the horror stories and things going on. What were some of the things that you have experienced and using that lesson of you buying a business to then add a couple more companies onto it?
Well, it's interesting. So I'll start off sort of on the good and then circle back around to some of the horror stories. The main reason New Garden Landscape and Nursery was put up for sale or I bought the company was the previous owner wanted to keep the relationship with me, with other long-term employees, of a lot of employees that are there long-term. And I see that in a lot of other companies. The other two companies that I bought wanted their legacy to continue. And I think we're seeing that a lot in today's industry with people not, the next generation not wanting to follow through on their mother's or father's footsteps. They are, businesses are up for sale and people do want to retire. But the problem is when somebody like myself comes and wants to buy another company, I'm not a merger and acquisition expert. I'm a pretty good business person, a pretty good landscaper, and I'm really good with people. But not being a merger and acquisition expert, that really causes problems with making sure you do your due diligence correctly. You have to dig in and look at the personalities of employees in the field, owners' personalities, because we found that a lot of owners don't really want to stay on past 6 or 8 months. They may say they want to be on for a year, 2 or 3 till they're really ready to retire. But when they're used to calling all their own shots and then having to answer to somebody once the acquisition goes through, they have a very difficult time with that. I think the biggest things we have is the culture between employees, new employees, old employees, ownership, integration of software. A lot of these companies are operating on a pen and paper, maybe QuickBooks, and trying to get them into a new updated software platform takes a tremendous amount of time. And then also with the clients, in this industry, it's a huge industry, but it's also very small within markets. Some customers may think, oh, I've used New Garden in the past. Now they've acquired this new company. I don't want to use either one because they may have had a bad experience. Their perception was they've had a bad experience. And you're counting on those customers to help pay the debt down or repay the owner back for the money that they've invested in these businesses. So, you always had the sexy side of merger and acquisitions through big companies, but it's not quite as sexy as everybody says that it is when a smaller company buys a little bit smaller of a company than them.
Yeah. No, I agree. And, we work with a lot of smaller and larger companies. And, one of the things I see is, a lot of the smaller companies just could do a little bit better job of preparing for selling. A lot of them operate the business, they're maybe still working in the business rather than on the business. So, when something comes along like a health issue, or maybe they're tired with all the big changes going on, and if somebody decide to want to sell, whether they use a broker, whether they go direct, but there's just a lot of things out of place that don't necessarily help with that successful transition. Yeah, have you ever come across that at all?
Yes, one of the companies I just bought this year, Landscape Irrigation Systems. When I was talking with the current or the previous owner, Buford, he said, that he wanted to stay on for 2 years till he was really ready to retire. And then I said, well, let's not put together a contract because I know that your intentions are to stay. Statistically, you're not going to. And he said to me, just a couple weeks ago, he said, man, I can see why the previous owners don't want to stay on very long. He said, nothing against you, or the company, but it's just the big changes and I can't change and do it exactly how I want to. So I think, that's one of the big problems. And, there's not somebody there on the merger and acquisition side to really help through that transition. It's me as a current owner trying to work through different aspects of the merger and acquisition. And we have a human resource person, which is fantastic, but she's used to working with smaller day-to-day issues, not the issues of a previous owner, and how to help with that transition for them. That takes a very high-level person to be able to do that. And we're not always qualified to do that as a smaller company.
Yeah, you actually brought up a couple of interesting issues. There was a gentleman on a few weeks ago, Brett Dillon, and he sold his company recently. And, I could relate to him that, when I sold my business, you do go through a lot of emotional roller coaster, a lot of emotional challenges, because you've been the go-to person for years. It's your baby, and it's something that's pulled away from you. So to transition into a different role is extremely challenging. So we talked about potentially developing a peer group around that sort of type of person, because there's obviously a lot around that, people around who have sold their business. So why not utilize their talents, create something of a peer group or some type of support system or something? So, and then the other piece that you brought up, and I think not necessarily many people talk about this, but I think it's nice to have some type of a deal team to help you with transactions, because you're right, a lot of people deal with the normal day-to-day stuff, but now you're certainly asking them to onboard another 10 or 20 or 50 new employees, and they don't necessarily have that capacity to do that. So again, thinking back, I'm sure you're not stopping there in terms of acquisitions, but what would you perhaps do something a little bit differently for future?
That's a great question, because I've contemplated that a lot in my mind after making these acquisitions. And, I have an executive team that I'm very close with and work with, and I informed them of the conversations I was having about the acquisitions. And I was a little bit naive to consider, that I could do a lot of it by myself, and they could continue on with their day-to-day operations, because they're on the executive team. They also have other responsibilities. On a future acquisition, I would go ahead and have an acquisition team put together, and everybody would have different responsibilities as far as onboarding, software, vehicles being changed from one company name to another company name, and really have a team put together to be able to make this run more smoothly for our employees internally, and the employees of the new company, and the previous owners. Because, I fooled myself during these two acquisitions, which doing two acquisitions within a month of each other was not a smart decision to begin with. But I fooled myself that it would not impact our field staff on a daily basis. And it did impact our field staff, because they not have the normal support that they need on a daily basis, because their supervisors were doing other things for the acquisitions. So it really does take a toll on the entire company or companies if you are not structured to have a merger and acquisition team put together to make sure it's successful.
Yeah, and that could be internal people, could be external people, could help you with that. Just like I had a conversation with another company, I don't know, last week it was, and they had, they were celebrating because they just won this, huge $1 million contract. I think it was a bunch of HOAs. And I said, yeah, that's great. I'm super excited for you, but the onboarding of those types of size contracts is really overwhelming. And just, be extremely careful. And I couldn't emphasize this enough. Be really careful about, yes, onboard those new clients, those new properties well, but don't take your eye off the ball with all your existing ones, the ones that are already paying you already have relationships with. So you got to make sure that it's almost all hands on deck, or maybe you're bringing in some other type of help just to help you with both of those big heavy lifts.
100%. It's it goes back to the old adage is that the chain's only as strong as its weakest link, and you've got to have a strong team put together and look forward for issues that you may not expect and be prepared for those.
So, again, one of the, I was actually on a panel recently, and it talked about, different ways to grow your company. And, all my growth was done through organic growth. We built sales team, we had sales playbook, we just had it really dialed in, really built into or in deep with a lot of associations. But on that panel, there was also a group around acquisitions. And I think looking back, when I had my business, I think there was that, I don't know if it was just we were scared, it was just the unknown of us not doing acquisitions because of trying to merge cultures, the people aspect, and it's just something we steered away from. So again, using your experience now, what would be the biggest 3 things that you would say to people out there that they do want to grow, they don't necessarily have a built-in sales playbook or sales team, but they're toying with the idea about acquisitions? What would be your advice for them?
So you want me to answer more about, sort of how I would move forward with another acquisition in the future?
Yeah, just so that, other people can learn from you in terms of how they would maybe go about some type of acquisition.
Okay. So I think the first thing is you don't need to rush into any acquisitions. That's the first thing. You've got to have long-term relationships. And it may take a year or 2 to discuss an acquisition with another company. And if it's not a good cultural fit, you need to walk away. No matter how good the numbers look, if the culture is not there, it's not going to work out. So that would be number 1, is a good cultural fit, and don't rush into any acquisitions. Second, I would say that it's really important that you have a good attorney and a CPA. I have that in one person that can help advise through the acquisition and help do the due diligence, because the due diligence goes further than just checking to see, that their balance sheet balances and if they have all the assets that they need to have. So I think those would be the 2 biggest things that I would really focus on.
I love that, especially that last piece. One of the things that we would do is towards the end of the year, we'd almost do our strategic planning. And then a part of that strategic planning would actually bring in almost like not quite our deal team, but we bring in our advisors, we bring in our CPA, we bring in our banker, maybe there's an insurance person, but we talked through those growth plans with them so that they were totally on the same page as us. They knew our growth plans, they saw we were organized, and that would help with the legal, the financial piece of things. It was really quite a powerful meeting.
I think it's important that you do really include your lawyer, your CPA, your banker in your strategic planning meetings, because they have a lot of different insight to the market, to changes in tax codes and laws that we're not privy to on a daily basis because it changes so much. So I think it's important. It's a big investment to do that. These individuals are not cheap. The banker is not going to charge you to be there, but your lawyer and your CPA will charge you. But it's worth the investment. That's not something we have done in the past, Robert. Definitely, we'll be meeting with Steve Steele this year for our strategic planning meeting, and then we may try to bring in our lawyer, CPA, and banker for a few hours for discussion in that.
Final question. People are interested in acquisitions. Would you seek out those companies through a business broker, or maybe just reach out to your network, look out to some of the other people within your geographic area and just start having some casual conversations?
I would reach out to people in the industry that may be close to the age of retirement, or that are looking to get out and maybe have a little bit more of a family life balance, turning into a W-2 employee rather than an owner. My situation was a little bit unique, being that I worked for John Deere Landscapes for so long, that I knew so many people in the industry, in our market, and I knew who ran good businesses, I knew who didn't run good businesses, and it allowed me to have those relationships. But if somebody's looking to grow their company through acquisitions more than organic growth, is reach out to somebody. Just ask the question, hey, are you thinking about retiring anytime soon? Do you have interest in selling your business? Or do you have interest in merging the 2 businesses together? Somebody may be a great visionary and want to grow their business, but they need an integrator. And they need an integrator that they can add to their business that has an owner mindset. Just start the conversation, ask the individuals. The worst thing they can say is no.
What's the best way for people to get in touch with you if they want to just pick your brain a little bit more?
Yes, feel free to reach out. mhunter@newgarden.com is my email address. Reach out to me if you have any questions at all. I believe in growing the professionalism of this industry for our employees, creating opportunities for employees and other business people. So please feel free to reach out. I'll help any way that I possibly can.
Matt, really a pleasure talking today. Thanks for your shares. And I look forward to talking to you again soon.
Thank you, Robert. Appreciate it very much.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Hopefully that was pure dead brilliant for you today, and you got some great Ironman mindset takeaways for your business or your leadership role. This is Robert Clickybeard. Love to get you, your friends, your employees to join us in our future journey. So please subscribe to your various podcast channels. Visit our website, commerciallandscaper.com or wilson-360.com. You could check out our digital courses. You could check out peer groups, coaching, my book, Ironman Mindset for Entrepreneurs. And we just want you to have a pure, dead, brilliant day. And finally, thanks again to Boss Business Management Software, which is the ultimate cloud-based solution providing comprehensive insights and tools to optimize performance. Join the Boss community today and transform your business so you too can say, my boss is working for me. Cheers, everyone.